if you take consideration what is happening to the market now, you go to some locations that before pandemic, they're charging $800 and now they're charging $1,300, right? Like $1,400. The rents really went up. And I'm not talking about $500 increase. I'm talking about $100 a month. That's the power of the multi-unit. So these are like the main reason, because also when you look to all the asset classes when talking about investment, either investing in stocks, investing in crypto, investing in commodities, investing in private securities, multi-unit is the safest vehicle among all the assets because you have a little bit of control, right? To do strategic renovation, decrease expenses, increase income, boom, you create money out of thin air.
Are you ready to take your portfolio to the next level? Do you already have a few single-family rental properties and you wanted to get into the multifamily space? Sandro Ferreira shares his investor journey as a newcomer to Canada and his take on multifamily investing. You're listening to the Black Wealth Effect podcast, where we're all about inspiring the next generation of Black Canadian real estate investors to succeed financially. If you're tuned in, that means you're hungry to take action and build wealth outside of your 9-to-5. We'll be sitting down with Black real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and allies to discuss a diverse set of topics to help you along your investing journey. Let's get started. You're tuned in to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast. Sandro Ferreira is our guest this week. Sandro, welcome.
Oh man, I am stoked. I am so excited and honored to be here.
Awesome. And we're excited to have you. We know you're an investor that's crushing it in the multifamily space. So definitely want to touch on that amongst other topics. But to start, we just want to get to know you a little bit. And so yes. We did do some digging, and we know you're an avid reader and yes. You're an advocate for always learning. And so,
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And I know in a recent interview, you said, like, if you want to change your life, you have to change your mind. And so
yes, sir. Oh, yes.
would love for you to touch on that a little bit. Maybe just share, like, what was the most recent book that you read? And then, like, what were some of the key learnings that you got from that?
Oh, man, this is a good point. So I'm going through a book right now. I actually finished one book. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm about to finish, and I make the notes. So I'm just access my notes. So the book that I'm going through right now is called The Millionaire Maker. And this lady, Laurel Langmeyer, she literally helped people to literally change their mindset and find ways to have $1 million cash in their bank accounts within like short space of time, right? Very, very interesting. Of course, there are some things that she says is like, I don't know about that, but overall, it's very interesting mindset. Because when you actually think about, and a big example that she brought into the book was just talking about Donald Trump. In 1991, he lost everything and he was in the billions of dollars in debt. And 2 years later, he not just came around, but more, which really helps me to understand how money works and how debt works and how the wealthy think. I recently quit my job as well, the 9-to-5, which we call the golden cage, because it's literally, when you think about how the society is structured, it's structured to get and keep people captive and have that false sense of security, which is all fake. Because I even here in Ottawa, where 80% of the employees, like federal government employees, they are in the region. And when the former government was in, they fired 20,000 people. So where all that security in the government, right? So very interesting. And my next book, I actually just got here. And this is the book that I got today. And it's called This is a little bit controversial. I have just to change my blur. Let me take the blur out here. This will be a little bit controversial, but this is literally called 1 Month to Live. So this is the next one. I finished this book probably this evening, and then I will start this one right away. And just reading a few things here I find interesting. You don't have any time to waste. The core message of this book says, what would you do if you learn all of a sudden that you only have 30 days to live? Like, how would your life change? And the idea is to help in the mindset to literally live a no regrets life. So I like this kind of reading. That's the books that I'm going through right now.
I agree that your mindset is definitely a huge factor when it comes to determining your success in anything you do. I want to touch a bit on your journey. It's definitely a unique and inspirational one. I know you came to Canada back in 2010 from Brazil, and you at that point, like, you had already had a pretty established career in Brazil. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So you're in the GTA, right? So when you think about GTA and you think about the hood, what the hood means in the GTA?
Like, I think about like the homelessness or the homeless population and crime.
What about like a neighborhood? Say a neighborhood. Oh, don't go there by yourself.
Although it's a great part of the city and has definitely evolved over the years. Growing up, I'd say Scarborough comes to mind. Hopefully none of our listeners from Scarborough get too upset with that.
I know, it is what it is. Now, when I think about Scarborough and the neighborhood that I grew up in São Paulo, it looks like Scarborough's kindergarten compared to the neighborhood that I grew up in. It's among one of the most dangerous cities or neighborhoods, if I will, in the entire world. Like, it's crazy. Now, growing up in a very religious and a very strong Christian-based household, I never learned how to play soccer because my mom would not let me play outside, like none. So people say, I'm Brazilian. Oh man, your brother, soccer. It's like, no, don't fool yourself. I don't play soccer. I don't even try. But I gravitated towards music, right? And since early age, playing the church and all of that. And I realized that I only had 3 options in life. So one, get through education to become somebody. And that's exactly how people say in Brazil. Oh, you gotta go to school so you can become somebody. Which now I have a problem with this saying, but back then, that's what you think. Or just turn myself into ministry and become a minister, a pastor or something, which was my mom's dream. My mom wants her son to be a pastor. Or just go towards the crowd and get involved with gangs and become a criminal. So I've seen many people that grew up with me, that are church to me, and then get into the easier life, or the only way that they found was the hope, and then either be in jail or be 7 feet down, like in the grave. Ministry, I've realized that the serious guys that are in ministry, if they're honest, they're broke. You know what I mean? Like, I know very few, other than I talk like, the big pastors that they have, the big churches, but the average guy, like, they're all broke. It's like, nope, that's not the path that I want for me. So then I started pursuing education. I was able to go, imagine this, I would go to work, get out of work 8 a.m. in the morning, leave at 6 p.m. in the afternoon, get the train, get the bus, go to university at night, and then I got myself through university, and I graduated in law. And I was blessed enough to get a job in one of the top law firms in the city. But man, it was a contract, because it was funny, because 400 employees, the whole office. I was the only man of color among 400 people.
Wow.
Yes. So the status was a big thing. And guess what? In Brazil, lawyers, they are considered doctors. So I would walk around, yes, I'm Dr. Sandro, right? And the watch and the suit and the shoes and the car. But man, Mario, I was broke, man. I was broke. It was all for the looks, right? And one of my cousins, he was always traveling. He was used to work for a airline company. And he'll tell me. So he visited over 100 countries and said, if I leave Brazil one day, I would live in Canada. Why Canada? Oh, man, Canada is a different place. So I always had that in the back of my mind. Fast forward, 2006 was for the first time on a seminar that government officials, they were talking about immigration to Canada, and I was hooked. It's like, yeah, that's where I want to go. I literally refocused my career. I went back to school, graduated in a different line of discipline. So I was graduating in law, and then I went towards business development and finally immigrated. Of course, there's a lot in the between. I was like, yeah, no, that's what I want. And I had never come to Canada at all. It was just based on pictures. And I don't know if you remember Orkut. Do you remember the old Orkut? So before Facebook, there was a social media called Orkut, Orkut. So there I met a lot of people that already live in Canada and the community. So I started connecting with people. Now, when I got to Canada, I had one thing in my mind. Say, I will do whatever it takes to succeed. Because for me, that was my American dream. Like I'm in Canada now. And I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, back in Brazil. But it didn't make sense in Brazil because the system's completely different. And here, it's like, oh, this is actually how it works. I can apply here. And that's how it started. Got one condo, two condos, and then the bank. No more money for you. Sold one condo, bought a house. No more money for you. Put some friends together to buy another house. And finally, the pandemic happened. So then I went after education, and I got myself plugged into a mentor. And my brother, the rest is history.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. And so, Sandro, I know you're very big in the multifamily property space, as we touched on. Can you share just a little bit about, like, for those who aren't familiar, can you talk about like what is considered a multifamily property, as well as just talk a little bit about your first deal in the multifamily space?
Yeah. So multifamily, anything that you have 2 units or plus, they're considered multifamilies, right? Duplex, triplex, fourplexes, fiveplexes, and then from there on. Now, how the bank sees it, anything below 4 or 5 units, if you have a duplex, triplex, fourplex, the bank sees it as a residential real estate. Anything that is 5, 6 units and plus is considered commercial real estate. Okay, so there are some fundamental differences there. But basically, let's say you got a duplex. Okay, you got a duplex either close to the university or in a high traffic area, and you can increase the income either by renting the rooms or on short-term rental, but you cannot impact the valuation of the property. Even so, unless you convert a duplex into a triplex, for example, or fourplex. But then you are directly impacted by the volatility. Oh my goodness. How the market behaves, that's what's going to impact the valuation of a property. And generally speaking, okay? Now, in the multi-unit space, you have more control because on the commercial real estate, 5 units, residential or mixed residential, either you have 5 apartments and 2 commercial, but mixed use, okay? The valuation of the property is impacted by the cap rate. So it's net operating income, meaning you collect rent, okay? And then you take the expenses, the hydro, insurance, management, all the expenses, then it gives you the net operating income. And then you divide the net operating income by the cap rate. Cap rate is the capitalization ratio that is used to determine certain markets. Low cap rate means you have a high appreciation, but low cash flow. In markets that you have high cap rate, you have a lot of cash flow, but you don't have a lot of appreciation. Okay? Now, I migrated towards multi-unit because my mentor is one of the biggest names in Canada in terms of multi-unit. And it's easy math. So I'll give an example. So you have a calculator. So let's do a quick math. Okay?
Sure.
Imagine that you have, like, let's call 20 doors, okay? You buy an apartment building that you have 20 doors. And like a secondary market, which is a cap rate around, let's say, 5-6%. Now, imagine that these 20 apartments, you're going to come in and you're going to increase the rent in $100. So let's do $100 times 20 apartments. That's an extra $2,000 a month in income. Okay. Then you do $2,000 times 12. How much we have? We have an extra $24,000 a year. Now, here is the magic. Please divide $24,000 by, let's call, 5% cap rate. So 24,000 divided by 5%. How much we have?
480,000.
So literally, you just increased the value of your property in almost $500,000. This is the power of multi-unit, right?
Wow.
Because by raising the rent by $100, I'm not talking anything crazy, like $100. If you're renting an apartment, I'm going to even, like, if you take consideration what is happening to the market now, you go to some locations that before pandemic, they're charging $800 and now they're charging $1,300, right? Like $1,400. The rents really went up. Like, and I'm not talking about $500 increase. I'm talking about $100 a month. That's the power of the multi-unit. So these are like the main reason, because also when you look to all the asset classes when talking about investment, either investing in stocks, investing in crypto, investing in commodities, investing in private securities, multi-unit is the safest vehicle among all the assets because you have a little bit of control, right? To do strategic renovation, decrease expenses, increase income, boom, you create money out of thin air. That's why. Now, my first deal. So when I joined, my mentor and I want to, like, right off the bat, one of the things that I've learned, even though I was working as a salesperson at the time, I started telling everyone, so Sandro, what do you do? I'm a real estate investor. I buy houses and we buy cash. I buy anything. If you know anybody that is looking to sell a property, talk to me. Oh, are you a real estate agent now? No. As a matter of fact, real estate agents, they work for me. They find the properties that I buy with my group of investors and we rent them out. And that was like my very first week as an investor, or officially a professional investor. And a friend of mine, he said, oh, are you really in this game? Yes. My cousin is selling a building, 13 units in Brockville, which is about an hour from Ottawa. Like, it's right there on the 401. He was selling the 13-unit apartment building in 2020 for $600,000. Okay? But the building was already paid off and he didn't want to pay a lot of capital gain. So what did we do? Sellers financing. I didn't need to go to the bank. He became the bank. And that was the very, very, very first thing that we did, where we managed to also get an extra money from him. So he did the $600,000 vendor take back, which is the seller's financing strategy, plus lend us another $200,000 to do the renovations as an interest. So we could do the turnaround in the building and then refi and pay him out. So literally got a building, a 13-unit apartment building for $0 and zero investors. Like, that was the very first one.
That's great. And I know you touched on a little bit about the, like, seller being the bank, but for those who aren't familiar, can you explain what a, like, seller financing is, or also known as a vendor take back?
Yeah, so there's many strategies. So you have a vendor take back, you have agreement for sale, you have mortgage assumption, but, like, generally speaking, because there's fundamentally some differences. So in a market like the market that we are right now, where interest rates, they are obscene, okay? So imagine that you decide to sell your property, okay? And then you got your mortgage, let's say, 3 years ago. So you're probably paying your mortgage like 3.5%, okay? And then right now, somebody tried to buy, and they just cannot qualify for a mortgage because mortgage is now, if you get prime plus 1 point, you're talking about already a 6.5%, 7%. But then here is the disconnect. You want to sell your property and you want to charge market value. But with interest rates, the buyer cannot qualify. So he want to pay less. And then now you're stuck because you want to get more for your house. The buyer is stuck because he cannot pay what you want to pay in terms of payments. Then get somebody like me. It's like, okay, let's create a win-win scenario here to everyone. How about I assume your mortgage, okay? So instead of paying the bank, I pay you, and then you're going to go pay the bank. But Sandro, I'm paying 3.5%. No problem. I give you 4.5%, even 5%. So I give you 1.5 points over what you're paying, but it's still better than what I would get with the bank. And let's call 3 to 5 years term. So I'm making a little bit of money on the interest side. I'm getting the property that I want because I know in that period of time the property will likely appreciate in value. And then when that term that we establish, either 3 years or 5 years, your mortgage is due, then I can qualify with a lower rate. Because you know that interest rates, they're very cyclical. So they come up, and historically, every 2-3 years, so when they come up in this wave that we are right now, they will very likely to come down because the governments, they are forcing a recession just to control inflation. And then when things are, kind of in control, then they drop the interest rates to then accelerate or to incentivize the economy. And that's one of the strategies. So now I'm not using the bank, nor qualifying for the mortgage because I'm using the agreement for sale strategy. And the VTB is similar, but at that point, I have to qualify for the mortgage. But what will happen is this. Imagine your house is almost paid off, or you have a mortgage, but the mortgage that you have and the value of the property have a huge gap. And if it's not your primary residence, you're going to pay a huge capital gain, which means that you bought your house, just to make it easy, you bought a house for 100, now your house is worth 200, okay? So, and if it's not your primary residency, and the extra 100,000, that goes straight to your income. 50% of that is taxable. So you made 100,000, 50,000 is on your income. And if you made 100,000 as an income, now your income is considered 150, and you're going to be taxed on your personal tax on the 150. So it's like a money grab, okay? So then I come again, say, hey, let's create another win-win situation here, okay? Why instead of me paying 200 for a house, you give me, so I qualify for the mortgage 100, so I pay the mortgage 100, and the other 100, you give me a vendor take back. You become the bank, meaning I will defer that payment to you, so then you are also deferring your taxes. Because now, again, you made 100,000 income. Now I'm not going to add another 50,000. I'm going to add, let's say I pay 10,000 a year, then I'm adding 5,000 to your income. So you're paying tax in 105. You're not paying tax in 150. I mean, that's generally speaking, it should be a little more specific than that, but just like generally speaking, that's how it works, right? So it can be very creative. Or you can also put a group of friends and family together. And then if you don't have the money, you just call the cousin, call the auntie, call the father-in-law, call the neighbor, put some money together, then you create a JV agreement, and then you can use that money to do down payment. Oh man, and so many strategies.
Yeah, that's powerful. And like you touched on it, right? Like one of the things I love about real estate investing is you do have those opportunities to find creative solutions to create those win-win solutions, right?
Yes. And for me, especially when I'm, surrounded by people that look like me, the BIPOC community, like, man, you don't see those things in people that are like born and raised here. They are ahead, right? They are already ahead. So but at the same time, is the lack of education. That's why I read so much, and I'm always looking for ways to increase my capacity to see things differently, right? Because then you bring the life experience, you bring the surroundings, and I always use that in my advantage, like always, because it's very easy for us, and the reality that you come in, it's very easy to say, oh man, this is how it is. I'm just gonna live my life like that. Like, why? Why? Why has to be like that? Why can we not create our own opportunities? One of the books that I read, it talks about the third door. Very interesting reading, and the guy basically starts saying, I tried one door, was closed. I tried another door, was closed. And he gave an example. Imagine you go to the club at night, okay? And then you go to the club, and then they have the line. Everybody in line. It's like, no, get out of the line. Oh, I'm going to try the VIP entrance. Go there. Who are you? Get out of here. So then grab a freaking hammer and break the wall and create a third door. So if the door is not open, go and create your own opportunities, right? And that's why I love real estate, because real estate will not see if you have an accent, if you have education, if you're white or black or yellow. If you understand how to leverage that, anybody can do it. And that's what I love about that.
Yeah, I love that as well. I love that analogy as well. Thanks for sharing. For an experienced investor that may have, call it like 1 or 2 properties under the belt, like maybe a duplex, and they're looking to scale into larger multifamily properties, like what advice would you give them?
Man, like a few things. 1, create a power team, get yourself a mentor. Number 1, get yourself a mentor. Get a mentor. Number 2, be coachable. Number 3, use the power of leverage. I leverage everything. I leverage other people's money. I leverage other people's times. I leverage other people's deals. I leverage other people's credit. That's the only way you're able to scale rapidly, is literally in collaboration. So why I'm saying this, okay? And I'm always using business as an analogy. So Tim Hortons, Burger King, and Heinz ketchup, or, Heinz Kraft,
yep.
They were bought by the richest Brazilian guy. It's a group of investors, and they bought Tim Hortons and Burger King, and why not? And I was watching his interview. He's the richest guy in Brazil, and he is among the 20 wealthiest people in the globe. He borrowed money to buy Tim Hortons. So then in my mind, wait a minute. The richest guy is leveraging that to create more wealth. Well, I'm not going to do the same. So literally, that's how we start. Now, if you have a duplex, you have a triplex, or even you don't have anything, like somebody that has a desire and want to invest, will say, oh, I don't have credit, I don't have a down payment, I don't make a lot of money, or I don't have a job. It doesn't matter. If you surround yourself with this right group of people, you can do wholesaling, for example. Go talk to Thea. Like, man, he just said, wholesaling is the easiest because you're literally connecting dots. You find a distressed house, you find an investor that is willing to do the flip, you make the connection, you make 5, 10, 15, 20K, like just like that, right? But it's not for everyone. It's like, no, I do have a duplex, or I have a few duplexes. How do I scale? Well, if you try to refinance right now, the interest rates, you're not going to be able to. So then sometimes you have to dispose of some smaller projects to get the capital and invest in bigger projects. But the way that I'm building my portfolio, dream big, but as big as you can, but build small. So dream big, build small. Because as you build small, it's literally the baby steps, like one door at a time. Gives you the consistency, gives you the experience, gives you the exposure. So then when you're moving to smaller deals to bigger deals and becoming bigger, then you get to the point where you start raising capital, people will give you 10,000 at times, then 50,000 at times, then 100,000 at times. Now, now I need the guys with 500,000 and then $1 million, and on and on and on. And brother, I will say this, money is abundant. Like the amount of resources available there is just unbelievable. So if you learn how to deliver value, the money follows, because then you become a giver. And as you give, then you receive. It's like the math backwards, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all comes full circle, right?
Yes.
That's fantastic. And actually, it's a perfect segue to my next question. Like you talk about like the systems and kind of the resources required to be successful when running a real estate business. Like what are some like apps or like resources that you use on a day-to-day basis when running your business?
Yeah, so I use deal check when I find a property and I want to know if that property I should buy. I mean, nowadays, when I'm going realtor.ca, for example, the website, like I spend 5 minutes and I already know if the property I would be interested or not. But because I mean, you analyze so many properties, right? But in the beginning, you can use an app that is called the Deal Check. It's a website that you can access through the app as well. You enter the property address, you enter the purchase price, if you're going to do any renovations, how much down payment, for doing property management, utilities, all of the breakdown. And then the app will tell you if you're going to have any cash flow, if you're going to have a negative cash flow, if you have any cash on cash, it's the return, the immediate return on investment, gives everything. Then if I want to connect with my investors, I use MailChimp. Because MailChimp, I create the newsletter, I just put the email, send, and I send to everyone. I also use Tenant Cloud because it helps to manage tenants. I mean, at the point now that I don't deal with tenants anymore, I have a property management company that deals with all the tenants, because I don't want people calling me 2:00 in the morning to say that their toilet is not working. Like, do not call me, call the property management company, right? And then, of course, Facebook. Like, I'm on Facebook every day, all day, sharing, connecting, adding value is one of the great platforms. I'm also like on TikTok, and I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, but Facebook is the main source. Why? Because, Facebook is for the old guys. Exactly. People who are ready to write checks, they are not on TikTok. I mean, they might, but people who are writing checks, they are on Facebook. They are on LinkedIn, right? Some of those strategies that I use to continuously add value and create the network and create the resources that I need to expand.
Wow. That's great. Yeah, I'll definitely add a few of those to my list of apps that I use. Thanks for sharing. So I know like one of the many hats that you wear is being a success coach.
Yes.
And you've already touched on it a little bit, but can you share kind of the secret sauce around your success in real estate so far?
Yes.
And any advice you would give any investors like experiencing adversity, especially in the current market?
Yes. So I will start, and I cannot talk about my success without talking about my faith, right? Like, I'm a Christian guy, grew up in a Christian household. I am what they call a PK, because I'm a pastor's kid. And, so basically, when you're a pastor's kid, you're going to be a pastor too. It's like, no, thank you. I have a different path. And again, when I'm talking about mindset, right? So there are 4 types of books that I read. I only read these 4 types. So I read books about Christianity, not Christianity itself, but books that they are related to my belief system. For example, one of the books that I read recently is called to Create. And even though it was written by a Christian author, the book literally unlocks. It's not even unlocked. It's right in our face, but we don't think about. So a lot of people, they either believe in God, or they call God a different name, or they believe in a superior force. And they're the folks that don't believe in anything. But when I think about people like me who believes that God created, and they are, they believe in the creation, all of that. So one of the premises of Christianism is that believes that God created everything. And then the book says, if God created everything as we believe, and we are created as its image, so if he's the creator, well, so then, like, emulating him, we have to create, which give us the power to actually create things. And then you go to the whole thing about, the secret, and people talking about the power of and the energy of thinking positively, but it's so real. It works, right? So it is number one. So I really believe that I'm here to create things. And I really, really spend time when I'm looking to an opportunity or I'm looking to an adversity, what is on this situation, is in this situation that I can't see? What is the blind spot? And I spend time and meditate and all that. Ta-da! Then you have the revelation. So number one. Number two, I read books about personal development, right? And the books of personal development, I am books that will really help my mindset to go to the next stage. What are the things that I need to do to keep expanding? Imagine an elastic band, right? If you get an elastic band and then you stretch, you can stretch, and then to not break, what we do, we release. But when we release this elastic band, it's not going to go to its original size anymore. It's already slightly bigger. Then we expand again, and then goes a little bigger. This is how our mind works. And that's why I read books about personal development. I also read books about real estate and business, and then about finances. Those are the 4 types of books. And people, Sandro, why don't go read a novel? Just because I don't have time. I like novels, but it's like, no, I don't have time. I'm in expansion mode. This is the number 2. Number 3, create a power team or get involved with a power team. Very, very important. If you are an eagle, why are you hanging out with chicken? You're going to start behaving like a chicken. I see people, brother, got to fake until we make it. No, it's fake. So then I say, well, behave so you will become. Right? So I am a multimillionaire. And it's weird because if you say it, actually, I'm going to challenge you here, brother. If I will, may I?
Yeah.
So, okay, say with me. $1 million.
$1 million.
$10 million.
$10 million.
$50 million.
$50 million.
$100 million.
$100 million.
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
$1 million.
$1 million.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, think about, your mind is already going to the million, the billion, just like the millions, like the million. So so the reason I'm saying this is because, our mind is so powerful. So are you planning to change your car in the next few months or years?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't mind saying, what is the brand that you're looking at?
Nissan.
Okay. So when you decided that it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a Nissan, and you go out, what do you see?
You only see Nissans.
You see Nissans everywhere. It's like, oh my goodness, I only see Nissans. Well, they were there already, but your mind wasn't framed for that. And then once you made the decision, all that you see is the Nissan that you want to buy, right? Mm-hmm. So the same thing comes when you're building wealth, when you're investing, when you're creating wealth. And I even had the issue sometimes, like, I'm a multi-millionaire, because people, especially how I grew up, consider, be rich, be wealthy, this is a sin, you can't. And then I'm thinking, we need wealthy people in our community to break the circle of poverty. It's a circle. Man, like, even I was talking to my dad another day, it's to my generation, my his grandfather was an slave, bro. Like, that's so close, right? And that poverty cycle that keeps following generation after generation, like, no, it breaks it, it stops here. Yeah, things are not given to us. It's not just handed in a plate, but we can change. So, and again, I'm sorry, I just started elaborating on that, but just to say, if people want to get started, the very first step, invest in a mentor. You cannot want to make millions of dollars and say, I'm not going to invest a few $1,000s. But Sandro, I don't have the money. Bro, when I got my mentor, I had $130,000 in line of credit and credit card debt. So then investing a little more to get a mentor, and I was very resistant. And then my wife turned to me and said, well, if you really want to invest, I have to trust what you're doing, because don't know what you're doing. I was reading Money Sense and financial posts and articles here and there, but I had no idea what I was doing. And literally getting the mentor is when I was able in 2021 to get from 7 doors to 114 doors, for example, in 1 year. They're like, wow, this is crazy. Yes, but it's doable. I mean, of course, it took massive action. And again, I didn't have millions of dollars to acquire this amount of real estate. Again, using the power of leverage, and why not, right? So I hope I answered the question.
You did. You did. And then some. I love it. Really, like your point on just breaking the cycle, focus on building that generational wealth, and then most importantly, taking that action, right?
Yes. It's building the third door. Exactly. I don't see opportunities everywhere. Okay, if we don't see the opportunities, then create the freaking opportunities, right? That's literally how my mind works. And I'm creating opportunities for me, for my kids' kids, and the people in my community. And when I go to the events, I always say, I'm glad it's not just my shadow here today. I have some brothers and sisters here. I see you, brother. I see you, sister. I acknowledge that. And even the last event was in Toronto. I was one of the speakers. A lady came to me. The comment that you made, I was very uncomfortable. She's white. I was very uncomfortable. It's like, why? Because we're all equal. It's like, I'm so glad you think like that. But the reality is, when you have the color of skin that I have, we know that we are actually not treated as equal unless we put ourselves in the position to be as equals, right? So that's why I acknowledge my people to say, guys, you are in the right place. I see you, and you can get there.
I love that. That's great. Wow. Well, thanks so much for making the time, Sandro. This has been a great conversation. I could definitely continue talking for hours with you. To end off, what's next for you from a real estate perspective, and what's the best way for our listeners to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, so I started with the last question. So you can literally go to any platform, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so 5. So LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You go /Sandro Canada, you're going to find me, right? And please connect. Let's jump in a call. Would love to share my mindset, how I got here, and what's next. So I am building a $1 billion portfolio. So my goal is to have a portfolio worth $1 billion. Now, people ask me, but why $1 billion? And then I ask back, why not? Right?
That's so great. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sandro, for making the time. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast. We'll catch you later. What was the one thing you heard today that inspires you to take action? Now plan to take that action in the next 24 hours. If you're looking for more support, ideas, or just want to connect with others like you taking action, join us in the Black Wealth Effect Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Black Wealth Effect podcast.